Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Friday. Friday the 17th of November 2023. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. Here's the thing. What's going on? United Nations has suspended aid deliveries into Gaza. United Nations. They're warning of dwindling food supplies and water supplies. Deadly clashes in the West Bank. Unconfirmed casualties in Gaza in a strike near Rafah. And so things are not good as far as trying to get food and water in Gaza right now. It looks like things are going to get a bit worse because the United Nations has suspended aid deliveries. I wonder why they're suspending aid deliveries. Anyway, they are. Fuel shortages, communication breakdown. Not looking good in that conflict. Now, do you remember yesterday I was talking about San Francisco, how they did this, I call it a pretense. It's just, they go through the city and they sweep and clean everything all they can. Throw all the tents into a garbage truck that's on the street. You know, their beds, their tents, their equipment, everything that the homeless have. So where did the homeless go? Well, I found out today, evidently what they did was the city went out and bought a whole bunch of beds, like maybe at a Kia or whatever, and they put them up. I don't know where they put them up. Probably, I'm just guessing, probably places like maybe they cleaned out a gymnasium at a high school or whatever, you know, someplace to put them. They're just like basically shoving them over, go over there, you know, for a day or two. Knowing how government works, they'll probably buy them all new tents or something, you know, new sleeping bags, whatever. They just waste our money, the government does, left and right. But so what was the effect of all this superficial pretense of cleaning everything up? Well, you can fool the Chinese. From what I heard, this is what I heard. I don't know if it's true. The Chinese said, quote unquote, garbage city. That's what I heard. Anyway. You know, this is something that humanity needs to really fight against, but it's so pervasive. It's so pervasive, we all accept it in our very youth. By the time we're 5 years old, we've accepted it as being the norm. It's called inequality. Now, the equality difference between, say, Biden and the street people that there. Think about that for a minute. That's called inequality. And it's as bad as, maybe worse, because if we can straighten up as a species, if we could straighten up our inequality problem that we don't even see, it's a huge problem that we don't even see, but if we could straighten it up, all these other problems like wars, crime, violence, it would all cure itself if we solved the major problem. The major problem is inequality. And the system is structured. Why it's so hard, why it'd be such a hard problem to fix, is because the way the system is structured for inequality within all aspects of our society. It's structured to promote inequality. And this is why these, I'll call them predatory type people, are so successful in a system of inequality. If you take away inequality, they would not be the most successful ones. The hardworking people, the people out there who are the good people, would be more successful in that kind of a system than the psychopathic, sociopathic, power-hungry, pushy people that do end up succeeding because of the way our system is structured. It's all got to do with the way our system is structured. And where did this structure come from? It's come down from history, down from the kings and queens. sovereignty. You know, that's where the structures come from of inequality. Slaves, and stuff like that. Now, moving on, because I can get bogged down in that topic, Iran and the United States are holding secretive back channel communications to avoid escalation of the war. Remember yesterday I told you things are starting to cool off a little bit? Well, this is probably why, because communication is key to keeping a war from spreading around everywhere which way. It helps. It really does help. It's like the first step is dialogue, and then the next step is them having talks, and then the next step is some sort of a peace treaty, and so on. They move in that. It's moving. It's starting to take a turn. It hasn't erupted. In other words, there was a few days there when this thing could have, it didn't, but it could have erupted into a much wider regional conflict. And then from there, because the United States and Russia's involved to one degree or another, it could have erupted into something much larger, out of control, totally out of control. That's what could have happened, didn't happen. Thank goodness. Anyway, we're moving on here. We got other stuff to talk about. Let's take a look now. This chart is where food is unaffordable. And red is bad. It means that food's more expensive, you can't afford to buy it. Maybe it's not because it's so expensive, but more that you're earning. How much you earn makes it unaffordable for you to buy food. And these are the areas highlighted in red. Orange is worse. So we see all of South and Central America is orange, and that's not good, that's bad. But Africa's bright red, and so is places in around India. But look at us. We're privileged. But you know what? We're going to start turning orange pretty soon if food prices keep going up. And I'm going to tell you what, if there is a famine, who's going to get struck first and hardest? Places like Africa. Because they're already in the unaffordable. They don't get a good diet. It's this share of the population that cannot afford a healthy diet in 2021. A diet is deemed unaffordable if it costs more than 52% of a person's household income. And that's the area shaded in red. Now, I wanted to talk about this article. It says we are sleepwalking into tyranny. One of the things here I wanted to talk about is it says the normalcy bias is a cognitive bias that occurs in times of crisis, leading us to disregard any signs of warnings that we are in danger. So, people that have normalcy bias, they don't know they have normalcy bias, but it is a defense mechanism that lulls us into thinking that life will just continue on as it always has. Because that's what we've seen our whole life. That's what we're used to. It is a reassuring presumption that things will get better. Or at least things will not take a dramatic change for the worst. But it also goes on to state here that steady progress is not the way the world works. History is a story of the rise and fall of civilizations. Tyranny, poverty, and servitude are the normal state of mankind, caused by the first subject that I was talking about, inequality. You can trace back to where inequality started in history. It goes all the way back to the last ice age, or what we call the Younger Dryas period. It seems to be sort of a natural tendency. If you watch shows like Survivor, oftentimes you'll see somebody within the group. They'll put them off into camps or whatever, and Camp A and Camp B. Maybe one will have a red flag and one will have a blue flag. you know. And in those camps, you know, you'll see that one person might take total charge. And he might be a total tyrant. He might be a psychopath for all you know, but he's got the kind of personality where this is where the pushy people excel. What I mean by you've all met the kind of person, you know, when you first meet them, they take liberties that you never granted them. What you need to do with a person like that is when they first do something like that, the very start, don't wait. Because if you're in a job or something, you start a new job, okay? And maybe this is good advice for young people out there. You start a new job, and there's a guy on there, or a woman, could be. They try you out. These are the pushy people. You got to put them in your place the first time. Don't let them get away with it. Right off, the first time, you got to put them in their place, because if you don't, they will make your life a living hell at work. And these are the kind of people that get elected and move up in society. They're the worst people you ever want to meet. But they grow good at hiding this, making themselves look good. You know, I don't know how I got talking about that, but this is what happens. We have normalcy bias, and in our civilization is too. It's patterns that make that humans make some progress, and then evil men, it says, do evil things, and stupid men do stupid things, and the civilization crumbles. And the normalcy bias can stop people from seeing this. By gosh, we got that situation right now where the civilization is beginning to crumble because we got too many of these predator bugs, you know, like that show I put on there yesterday. The predator bugs only survive if they've got enough of the predator bugs were red, and the worker bugs were green, and the predator bugs would eat they would have to eat the green bugs in order to survive, and they all die out when there's not enough green bugs to go around. And see, this is why civilization can suddenly crumble. It can reach a peak, and then suddenly the whole thing crumbles. Takes you by surprise. That's the point we're at right now, but we can see it coming. If you're smart and you're watching what's happening in our whole civilization and all of the things that's going on out there, if you're smart and you're watching, you're keeping your eyes open, you can see the deterioration occurring. You can see it in real, but it's very slow. At a certain point, it's going to be fast. And we're getting very close to that point now. And it's no joke. When civilization crumbles and decays, especially when we have a civilization that's totally dependent on the internet, dependent on a power supply and everything. We've made a situation when it crumbles and it hits a certain point where the power grid goes down, then it's going to get really crazy. And that can happen very suddenly. And we've also made it so that the control mechanism that these sociopaths and psychopaths use, the ones who govern this system, they rely totally upon the information highway in order to be able to extend that control over the masses. So the grid goes down, people can't not communicate. The communication is cut. It's almost like a person who all of a sudden loses their eyesight and loses their sense of hearing. How do they know what's going on in this world any longer? Well, that's what it would be like for these leaders if suddenly the communications network goes down. Then they don't have any control over the people because the people can't hear the word of what they're saying any longer. And it could lead to total chaos. And when we're this dependent on society for everything we need from this just-in-time delivery network, it could be very bad. Could lead to if in a worst case scenario, I don't even want to say what it would do in a worst case scenario. A best case scenario, because civilization is crumbling, if we get off easy, we're only going to have regional power grid failures. That's if we get off easy. Worst case scenario, the whole thing goes down and they can't get it back up again. That would be a worst case scenario and probably lead to a nuclear war as well on top of it. That would be a worst case scenario. So, but we don't know just yet. We're in that period right now where it's undetermined. The future's undetermined yet. Now, moving on, taking a look at the silver price today. She had a little dip. Nothing goes up in a straight line, you know. 23.72 right now. You know, I think it crossed $24 there for a little bit. When it was at its peak, yeah, it did. It crossed $24. Silver's been doing awfully good lately, and so's been gold. But I'm not confident that these are the big moves up. We haven't seen our $3 days where silver goes up $3 in one day yet. And I told you guys that's coming, and I still stick by it. We're going to have $3 days. And I think we're going to have multiple $3 days. Not just one day it goes up $3, but the next day it goes up $3 again. The next day $3 again. I could see us having a whole 2-week period of that going on. $3 a day. Maybe 3 weeks of it. Just for it to try to get into a normal price range where it should have been all along. It's been so suppressed. You know, it costs. Do you know this? Just for. They used to have to take. I think it was about 100 pounds of ore. I think turned into like an ounce of silver. It used to be. I think now it's something like 500 pounds of ore they have to dig out of the ground. Now those are rocks. Ore's rocks. So they dig 500 pounds of rocks. Then they have to crush those rocks to powder, and then they have to go through a separation process with chemicals and vats and stuff like that. Do you know how much energy that would take? Can you imagine if you went out and got a wheelbarrow and filled it full of ore rocks, silver ore rocks, and the whole wheelbarrow would just be full to the brim, a big wheelbarrow. You can hardly pick it up. Weighs 500 pounds of all these rocks. And then you got to take a hammer, and you got to beat that all down into powder with a hammer, manually. And then you got to put it into a vat and sort it through chemicals and stuff. This is how it was done at one time, back in a long time ago, you know. But now they got these big machines to do it, but it takes energy. And so you're buying a lot of value when you buy an ounce of silver. You're getting a great value considering the work that goes in, and considering it's a limited resource that's getting less and less and less. Very slowly, ore grades are dropping off. Every year they drop a little bit lower. I could see a few years from now it being down to about 3 ounces per ton. You know? So, 33.72 today. Let's take a look at gold. I think it's around 6 ounces per ton right now. And you know it used to be, they used to get like over 20 ounces every ton. They used to work to crush and stuff. Good money in it back then. You know, now it's getting harder and harder. And them suppress. Listen, they cannot source silver right now for the U.S. Mint, because the U.S. Mint's only going to pay spot price. If the spot price is manipulated lower, and everybody else is paying more, so they can't source blanks. So they're almost out of business, practically. Well, they're not out of business, the U.S. Mint, for making silver, but I'm just saying that, it's got to the point where you might not get any more U.S. Mint Silver Eagles and stuff might be just about getting done because they're only willing to pay the spot price, and they've manipulated the spot price. Their own people, or the bullion banks, have manipulated. But they turn a blind eye to most of it. Occasionally, they'll give them a little slap on the wrist, but you're not going to be able to buy eagles and stuff. Can you imagine? Cryptocurrency today. Oh, did we do gold? Yeah, 1980 for gold. It's up 10 cents. Wow. Okay. Bitcoin's down a little bit. 36,047. It's struggling right now to maintain the price. Ethereum's come down under 2,000 now. They're 1929. XRP's at 59.4 cents. So see crypto struggling right now a little bit. Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 22 points at 34,930. Taking a look at crude oil, she's up $1.27 today at 74.17. Boy, the United States is vulnerable right now. I'm going to tell you what, I think they know a lot of this stuff ahead of time. Like, the thing is that Iran didn't attack and they didn't cut off the Strait of Hormuz or anything like that. It was reflected in the oil price ahead of time, and it was cheap. If they had been really going to do all that, I bet you they would have front run. The oil price would have went way up. We would have saw huge gains in the oil price, and then all of a sudden, boom, Iran attacks or whatever, or Strait of Hormuz is cut off. It's probably signaling us in the oil price all along that this whole thing is kind of end up the way it's ended up. Bonds and rates today, what we're looking at is a mixed bag. The 30 years dropping. It's a half a basis point down at 4.61. And the U.S. 10-year is at 4.46, and it's up 1.6 basis points. Finishing off with the dollar index at 104.1. And the dollar today is falling off. Thank you guys for listening to my show. I appreciate you guys listening to my show. It means a lot to me. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. You guys have a great afternoon out there. Really enjoy it. If it's sunny out there, get out of the house and take a walk or do something, That's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon. I'm going to be taking a nice long walk if I can, I got a little bit of work to do, first. But maybe I'll have a bit of time before. Boy, it gets dark early right now, this time of year. Man, it's just... Well, I'm up further north, so it's even worse for me. It gets dark really early at night. Okay, we'll catch you guys in the next show. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.